Hi friends, I'm Chelsea Grayson coming to you once again from the Office of the CEO. This is my show where I can help you be more successful in your current career, and I can also help you successfully transition to a new career. So today's topic comes from my colleague Marcus, whose Instagram is @coolestceo. Go check him out. Marcus, thank you for today's topic, which I think is extremely relevant. I'm going to give you my top 5 tips for how you can successfully run your company during the COVID-19 crisis. So over the last couple of episodes, I've given top 10 tips of how to more successfully work from home, or top 10 tips of how to manage your employees while everyone's working remotely. Today's episode is specifically geared toward business owners, whether small, medium, or large, in terms of how to help you guys guide your businesses successfully through the crisis and then through the recovery period over the next 18 to 24 months, and then finally emerge ultimately successful when the economy comes back in full swing. So let's get started. So tip number 1, you guys should always remember that your most valuable asset as a business owner are your employees. So I have 3 ways to suggest in terms of how you can protect that most valuable asset, i.e. your employees. So number 1, have regular and constant, transparent communication with your employees. Tell them what's going on with the company, with operations, with where you think the future of the company is going, with how you think the strategic plan has been changed, or with things that you think you might need to implement. In this way, employees are less likely to suffer anxiety. They feel a lot more control over their environment. They feel more fully informed. They feel like they're really a part of the process and that things aren't being kept from them. So there's not going to be any surprises down the road. And most important, you keep their morale boosted, hopefully, because your communications should all contain a bit of optimism, a bit of hope for the future. So second way to protect that valuable asset, your employees, of course, is to make working from home for them, if they can work from home, as simple and practical as possible. Help them out as much as you can during this. And this includes a tip that I gave in one of my previous episodes, which is, you might have to deal with technical limitations that some of your employees have at home. They may not have a great home office they can work from, or even a decent working space. They might technically, again, not have the right computer equipment, scanners, printers, a great landline that they can always use for conference calls, what have you. So be flexible, help them out as much as you can in terms of supporting those technical limitations. And also be sensitive to the fact that they might not be able to fix those limitations, and you might just have to do things a different way than what you had ultimately planned. And finally, in terms of flexibility, I do want to remind everyone that people have children, people have their parents that might be living with them, or other senior citizens. So you need to be mindful that there might be breakfast times, dinner times, bed times, whatever that you might need to, now that your employee is working from home, you might need to be a little bit flexible and working around those schedules. So be sensitive to that. Now, number 3 way to keep your most valuable asset intact is, in respect of your employees, is for those employees that can't work at home. They've got jobs where they're going to have to be on the road, or they're going to have to come into the workplace one way or the other. You need to make the workplace as safe and healthy as possible for them. This is not the time to cut corners. This is definitely not the time to give sort of a nudge and a wink, wink, oh, we can skip that rule or avoid that precaution. Do everything to the T the way that the experts are advising. Believe me, your employees are going to thank you for it later. Absolutely thank you for keeping them healthy, and they're going to feel like a valuable part of your process. So number 2 tip in how to successfully run your business through the COVID-19 crisis. Be sure and establish a stakeholder communication strategy. So this is the regular and meaningful conversations and dialogues, and I do mean conversations, whether it's over Zoom or a conference call, so not just emails. So communications with your suppliers, your investors, partners, even local officials. I consider all of these people to be stakeholders in your business, so that they can continue to understand what you're doing in your business, what your needs are. You can stay informed in terms of what sort of support you can achieve from your relationships with those folks, so that, you stay on top of mind for them in terms of day-to-day. How can they make things a little bit easier for you take an example of one of your shareholders, right? They might not realize that you're having a cash crunch. And so if you constantly communicate with them in terms of what your cash flow looks like week to week, then any given week, they might be able to step up and make a loan or an additional investment or point you in the direction of somebody with whom you can raise some additional capital. That's just one example. If you're not keeping your investors fully informed week by week, they might not realize what sort of a crunch you're in. And then, of course, when we go through the recovery and when ultimately the economy, ends up turning back to healthy, then you will have really deeply entrenched your relationship with these stakeholders. And so when we return to some sort of semblance of normal, you would have really established a great working, amicable rapport with them that you may or may not have had previous to this crisis. So you might come out of the crisis with an even stronger relationship with the stakeholders. And doing things like, I'm going to give you an example of how you can establish and maintain a really healthy relationship with your suppliers during this period, because I think it's a really poignant example. Suppliers are also suffering. It's not just your business. Your suppliers, your vendors are also suffering. And so instead of doing what a lot of businesses are doing right now, which is just sort of whole cloth, canceling all of their orders and not talking to the supplier about when they're going to start ordering again or in what quantity they're going to start ordering again, talk to your supplier about maybe establishing a delayed delivery and, delayed payment plan or an installment plan, or negotiate some sort of an alternative deal with your supplier so that they're kept in the loop that, no, I'm not closing down and I will be back in full swing as a full-blown customer of yours once the economy returns. Right now, I can't do it, but let's do what we can to support one another during this bridge period. Trust me when I tell you, COVID-19 is not the last crisis we're all going to face. And there's going to be some crisis down the road where your supplier is going to have a choice as to whether to cooperate with you in terms of helping you through a crisis or not cooperate with you. And so right now, if you do your part to help keep the suppliers afloat by at least being communicative with them, trust me, they will come through for you when you go through a crisis down the road, like all businesses do. And, look, the more that you treat them in a fair way right now, the more they're likely to treat you in a fair way down the road. So again, comprehensive stakeholder engagement is going to yield great results for you in the short term, because you might get some breaks in terms of the requirements that your suppliers and vendors impose on you, and you might get some additional capital or some additional help from a local official, but also long term, because you will have established a mutually respectful and trusting relationship with that stakeholder. So my number 3 tip is similarly communicate with your customers in a really transparent and regular way. Talk to them about your behind the scenes struggles. Talk to them about how they can help you, bridge from this bad period back to a healthy period. I mean, you've seen this with restaurant owners who are reaching out to their local communities and asking them to continue to patronize the restaurant, even if it's just a to-go or a delivery order. You've seen this with various retailers where they're asking you to just buy gift cards or continue to shop with them online to help bridge them through this period. You, with your business, should not be above telling your customers, look, I'm going through a struggle right now with the business, and if you want to see this business stay afloat, here are the things that I would love for you to do that would help me out, even if in a small but meaningful way. The other thing that you can be doing with your customers right now is establishing a non-transactional relationship. So not every time that you go to your customer right now should you be trying to have them buy one of your products or buy one of your services. Right? Try to go to your customers every once in a while right now, providing them with free, helpful advice from your unique perspective, depending on whatever your business or your specialty is, right? Provide calming advice, even provide things that are totally unrelated to your business, but that you just might think will be helpful for your customer. Let them know about any charitable events that your business is involved in or that you're involved with individually. In this way, this is going to make your customer feel compelled to remain a loyal customer to your business once the economy recovers. Trust me, they will feel a loyalty. They will feel you pulling at their heartstrings when the economy recovers. They will feel more compelled to patronize your business versus some other business that provides the same service or product, but didn't engage in the same non-transactional relationship building effort that you did. So tip number 4, plan for the short term. So right now, the most important things for your business are cash flow and cash management. Cash flow and cash management are your absolute priorities right now. In terms of cash flow, what I mean by that is don't worry so much about the margins the way that you normally do, profit margins. Try to just generate as much cash as you can, and whether that means engaging in promotional activity, putting things on sale or putting things at a discount, or any sort of other activity that can help generate cash flow, including maybe changing up your offerings, changing up what products and services you're delivering or how you're delivering it. Whatever you can do to generate as much cash as possible so that you can pay your critical vendors and suppliers right now, do that and worry less about the margins right now. You have time to worry about margins in the future. I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by this. So I have a lot of customers right now that have sort of abandoned their typical product offerings, which might be sort of couture level or upper fashion level offerings, for example, in the case of a retail apparel company. And instead, they're deciding to offer basics or comfort items. And they're not just switching to that, even though that's totally off-brand for them, but a lot of them are using on-demand factories. On-demand factories are factories where once your customer orders the particular product from you on your e-com site, then only then is that product manufactured in the on-demand factory. And then that product is fulfilled directly to your customers. So you never see that product. Now, that means that you can avoid having to order any inventory that you might not ultimately be able to offload and might not go very well when you put it on sale even. And it allows your customer to continue to buy things from you and things that you might not normally be selling to your customer. Because again, since you're not ordering inventory, you can afford to experiment a little bit with what you're offering to your customer, including, all sorts of basics and comfort wear that your customer is really going to be wanting to wear at home right now. So it's a really risk-free way of generating a lot of cash because again, at a very low margin way, unfortunately, because again, on-demand factories are a little bit more expensive to work with for all the obvious reasons, but at least you're generating cash and it's risk-free because you're not having to purchase inventory in terms of having to, in order to generate that cash. Now, in terms of cash management, what do I mean by cash management? So right now is a time where you're probably going to have to juggle bills on behalf of your business. You might have to determine that some bills aren't as important because it's not a totally critical vendor or supplier for you. So you might pay that bill, kick that can down the road a little bit and pay it 90 days out instead of 30 days out the way you normally would. There's some bills that maybe you'll toggle. Every other month you'll pay this set of bills. Every other month you'll pay that set of bills. And again, some vendors and suppliers you might just go to and try to negotiate some sort of installment or delayed payment plan. Either way, you're going to really want to focus on cash management right now. So again, for the short term, focus on cash flow and cash management. My final tip is plan for the long term as well. So not just planning for the short term, but now we're talking about planning for the long term. This means planning for the recovery period, which is going to happen over the next 18 to 24 months, hopefully. And then when the economy returns, hopefully, to some semblance of normal after that period, planning for that period. So when the boom happens again. You want to scan your middle and long-term horizon so that your supply chain is poised and absolutely ready to handle both the recovery period and the period when the economy ultimately really comes back in full swing. You don't want to be a company that gets caught with your pants down where you're understaffed, you don't have enough inventory, you're not going to be able to deliver product and services to your customer when they really start to demand it again. There's all this pent-up demand right now. People still need the things and services that they always did. They'll be consuming them in a slightly different way probably, but they're still going to want those things, and you want to be able to provide those things for them the very minute those floodgates open. So make sure that your supply chain is ready in the long term. And another idea for the long term, you have a little bit of time to think right now, right? So think about your business. Think about whether this might be a good time for you to pivot in terms of the product or services that you offer to your customer. This might be a great time to just go to ground, redo your offerings, and then once the recovery and the economy ultimately surges, you'll be ready to rebrand and show your customer all this great new stuff that you've got, and your supply chain will be ready to provide all of that, and you'll be fully staffed. So either way, just make sure you're ready for the long term, because things will come back. Your customer is going to come back, and you need to be ready for all of that. Now, before I let you go, I want to give you a pro tip. So this is sort of a bonus tip in addition to the top 5 that I just gave you. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has an amazing website. It's at uschamber.com. And right now there's a whole section, as you might imagine, devoted to how we're responding to COVID-19. And a huge part of that section is devoted to businesses, in particular small businesses. There's all sorts of practical guides that tell you all sorts of best practices in terms of how to handle COVID-19. There are all sorts of articles that they've put together. There are various toolkits that you can get into. This is all totally free. And all sorts of resources as well. For example, how to apply for a low interest loan, how to apply for a small business loan. They even have information in terms of how to apply for payroll protection services, and for the next crisis that hits, because it's a little bit too late for this one, how to get payroll stoppage insurance. That's a very important insurance policy that some of you may have now realized you unfortunately didn't have for this crisis, but you'll definitely need it for any other crisis that comes down the road. So this is to the extent that you hit a crisis, you're going to have trouble making payroll, you're going to miss payroll, and payroll stoppage insurance will kick in at that point and help you comply with payroll law and pay your employees. It's a very valuable piece of insurance that you definitely want to have for your business. So if you go to uschamber.com, that provides all of those resources, and I've enjoyed a lot of the articles that they've been posting there over the past couple of weeks. So those have been my top 5 tips, plus my 1 bonus tip in terms of how you can successfully run your business during the COVID-19 crisis. Again, thank you to my friend Marcus. His ad is Coolest CEO, and I will see you guys next time from the office of the CEO.